Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money Podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Julie Murphy on the line, and she's a certified financial planner, president of JMC Wealth, and author of Awaken Your Wealth, Creating a Path to Optimize Your Money and Your Life. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Nice to be here.
So I'm excited to get into today's topic, money and fear. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about what you're doing over at JMC Wealth. Tell us a little bit more about the company, please.
Sure. JMC Wealth Management's been around for over 20 years here in the West Loop in Chicago. And we really take the approach of holistic wealth management, meaning that many people go to financial planners because they want to, some people are selling insurance, some people are selling investment products. And at JMC Wealth, we actually really build life from the inside out. So we actually really focus on a person's authenticity and their soul's purpose, and then we build their financial life and their portfolios from that vantage point, taking into account their personal life, their family life, and their careers that then result in their financial life.
What are, just so some of the people listening have a feel, what are the right type of clients that are typically a good fit for JMC Wealth?
You know, it's interesting. My entire industry always is all about assets under management. Like, you have $2 million, well, then you can actually come into an investment firm. But at JMC Wealth Management, we have certified financial planners that meet anybody where they're at entry into the company, because at different life stages and life events, you have different needs. And we have planners that are also in different parts of their careers to actually help people at different life stages and life events. And so to me, there's a whole lot of people that are not being served in America that really need to be served from a financial planning standpoint. And it's time that we start to actually take middle America into account, not only the people who are the heart and soul of America, and not just focus on the rich.
No, I love it. And I mean, and you're right. And there's just a shortage of planners out there. I mean, we could talk about that all day, but I do want to get into your book a little bit more. Tell us about the book. So Awaken Your Wealth, Creating a Path to Optimize Your Money and Your Life.
Yeah. So over the years, as I've been working with clients, I've started to realize that, you know, everyone who doesn't have, you know, a few $1 million, they actually feel like once they have a few $1 million that they will have arrived and everything's great. And then those who have, you know, 3, 5, 10 plus $1 million, they have the money and they're not happy either. And so I started to notice that, wow, how do we really get to a place of what I call in my book being in a state of being of real wealth, meaning that you are in a state of pure happiness because you're living your heart, but you're living your life from your heart and your soul. And so many people, you know, our educational system actually doesn't set us up for that. They always say, go get the job, go get the promotion, go do all these things, get educated, check all those boxes. And for so many people, it's put them in a lot of debt. They've went into, they got degrees that were in things that have nothing to do with their careers now 20 years later. And they're digging themselves out of a hole. And so the PACT process really walks people through the system that I've been using for years to how do you redesign your life and build your life from the inside out, as opposed to how most of us have been taught to build your life from the outside in. And what I mean by that is, so the P in the PACT process, I have found that picturing the life that you want to create, which is the first step, is the only compelling reason that has actually worked in a sustainable fashion to get people to the other side of what they want to create in their life. And this is whether you have multi-millions or you don't, because we're all human beings in the end. And it's being willing to be able to picture what it is that you want to create, regardless of how old you are, regardless of your life circumstance. That, you know, I always tell the story that I had a 72-year-old client whose wife had passed. He was worth a couple $1 million, and he would always come to my office and go, the money's for the kids. The money's for the kids. And I said, come on, isn't there something that you've always wanted to do that you never did? And I just saw this smirk on his face. And I go, what's the smirk about? And he goes, well, I always wanted to be a lawyer, but then, my wife got pregnant. I never wound up going back to school. And, I provided for my family all those years. I'm like, you have $2 million. Why don't you just go pay to go to law school? He goes, people my age don't go to law school. And I would just joke with him every time I saw him, like, so did you take the LSAT yet? And by the time he was 74 years old, he actually, for giggles, he decided he walked in actually to my review appointment with him with the acceptance letter to law school. And that man then wound up actually getting his law degree, and he practiced law until 85 years old. And you would have thought that man won the lottery.
Wow.
Because he found a sense of purpose. And it ignited him. It expanded him. It made him feel good about himself. And I swear it added years to his life. And I can give you 100 more examples of people I've worked with for the years. So this picturing piece is the most important piece of the equation. Now, the second step, I know, isn't it great? It's like, it just gives me goosebumps. The second step that I walk people through is the A in the PACT process. And that's about accepting the reality that you've created and awakening your authenticity. And accepting the reality that you've created, you may have gone into your marriage all, glassy-eyed. This is great. And you're divorced now with a couple kids, and it's never what you wanted it to be. And you were building a bunch of money, and now it's split in half, and you're starting all over again. Or it could be the fact that you never married, or you don't open up your bills when they come in the mail because you're afraid to see what's in those envelopes. But if we don't accept the reality that we've created, and that is what is so important, we have got to accept that we created the reality we have. It's not about everyone outside of us. We individually created it because you took a part in participating in how it all has turned out. It didn't happen on its own, and it only didn't happen with those other people or employers or governments, whatever around you. So the second step is, so you're picturing your life, then you accept the reality. There is a freedom in that acceptance that then breaks off the chains and the ball and chain that just is weighing you down. Because when we focus too much on our past and what we've created, all we do is create a state of depression. And so how do we get past that? Well, we start to get past that by, we start to then go, who am I today, and who was I? When I was a child, what did I dream of? What did I think of? Because we don't have filters when we're a kid, right? And it's like, who is my authentic self? I know after I got divorced, I didn't even know what my needs were because I had been taking care of everyone else. I had 4 kids. I had at-home dad. I had 2 nannies, and because I was doing everyone else's needs that I didn't even know what my needs were anymore. I did all this work in terms of, I remember the day that I belly laughed for hours. So I was like, oh, there I am. That is who I am. And it was like I got back in touch with my authenticity because that connects you then back to your heart space, which then can lead you to the last 2 steps of the process. And so the C is actually choosing to change. And choosing is not just saying that something outside of yourself, that it's something that you're actually starting to embody. Like you may not have all the right steps, but it's about the willingness to take the next right step in your life, even if it's not exactly where you want to end up, but it's the next right step. And that you're making choices that are actually going to lead you there. Because we are constantly making choices today that do not come close to creating the tomorrow that we want. And the last step in the process, which is the step that every financial planner and finance person out there helps everybody with, but they miss the first 3 steps beforehand, and that's taking action. How do you connect this all to your financial world and your personal life? And I have many people who are in jobs these days that are just not feeding them. They hate their boss, they don't like what they're doing, or they don't like the city that they're living in. They've always wanted to leave, but they don't know how to financially shift because so many of us have pigeonholed ourselves into a lifestyle because we have way too much financial past, which is in our debt, whether it's mortgages or car debt or student loan debt, credit card debt, that we can barely live in the present moment. And I always talk about that. Our present moment from a money perspective is how our cash flows, the income coming in, the expenses going out. And a lot of people will say to me, well, Julie, isn't that your budget? No, I want everyone to take the word budget out of your vocabulary. And the reason I say that is because telling somebody going on a budget never makes anybody feel good. And I want you to come from a place of empowerment to where it's like, I'm going to choose where I want my cash to flow as opposed to, oh, I can't do this. It's the same thing with dieting with food, right? It's like, yeah, tell me I can't eat that, and then guess what? I'm going to go eat 10 Oreos at some point because you told me not to eat them, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the future, right? And so it's like we have to clean up our past while living in the present moment and plan for the future all at the same time. And that's really important as we're taking these action steps moving forward, that we take all three of those into account, because when one only focuses on, let's say, for example, I'm only going to focus on debt payoff. Well, guess what? You're only going to recreate more debt because you're not changing your system and your process of creating the reality that you've already gotten. And I've watched people who have $600,000 income, $1 million of income. They just have more zeros, but it's the same process. It's the same suffering cycles. And it's like it's time for us to break the chains and get back to a place of financial empowerment.
Man, that's awesome. So, Julie, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information on JMC Wealth or to pick up your book, Awaken Your Wealth, what's the best way for them to reach out and to do those?
Certainly, JMC Wealth Management, or jmcwealth.com is our website. Also, you could go to juliemurphy.com, where I'm building a community with a lot of these tips and tools and other resources to help you in the other areas of your life. And Amazon is the best place to get my book, Awaken Your Wealth.
Fantastic. Well, hey, Julie, I can talk to you about this all day long. I love what you're doing. I love your work. Book is awesome, but we're about out of time. So thank you again for coming on the show today. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you learned a lot. Hope you had fun listening because we had fun bringing this to you. If you did, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast. Leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, then definitely give us a subscribe there. But also leave us some comments in the video section. Love to know what your thoughts are, and I love to keep the conversation going over in the YouTube community. And Julie, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam.